and it's a demo, as you can see from the title, is end-to-end Microsoft Fabric project. So, and then that's the beauty of demo, is that no matter what, you will always learn, because there's nothing better than seeing someone do what you're trying to understand versus you reading it or them talking you through slides. And today we've got MVP Francis Folaranmi. He's going to be taking us on this session. And this session is brought to you by your BizEdge and MHS Analytics. Your BizEdge is a Nigerian Microsoft Excel, data analysis, Power BI, financial modeling, SQL training and consulting company. So if you require training services, consulting services, we are one of your dependable options. We've been doing this since 2014 and we service a global clientele. I'm going to share this link in this slide in the chat. It's for you to access some of our free and premium resources. Many are free, but some might require you to pay in case you want to go for the paid resources. And MHS Analytics is our Canadian, I don't want to say branch, but the Canadian equivalent of your BizEdge, and it's to service North American clients with the same services, actually. And to the main reason we are all here, we've got Francis with us already. He's a Microsoft Data Platform MVP, and he focuses on Fabric and Power BI technology areas. He currently works as a data analyst with ARM. He's a certified Microsoft Fabric Analytics engineer. I think that's the TP600 exam, which is new. I think the exam actually was made generally available this year. So you can see he's at the bleeding edge of this BI space. He's an expert in harnessing analytics tools and, helping management make meaningful insight and seeing actionable recommendations. I'm going to share his LinkedIn connect, let me put it that way, on the Teams chat so that you can connect with him. But right now, I'm going to hand over to him so that he takes us on this session. And he says you can drop your questions in the chat and he will see them. At the end, he will answer. So don't feel like we're ignoring you. Put up your questions in the chat as they come to you so that you don't forget. And then at the end, he will answer all the questions. Okay, so Francis, over to you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'll go off camera. And yes, it should take us away now.
Yeah. Yeah, good evening, everyone. Good evening. You can all hear me. Yeah.
Yes, all good.
Session. Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen right about now, then jump into today's session. So just let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes. I see your screen.
Oh, yeah. So the topic we have before us today is an end-to-end project with Microsoft Fabric. So I check other presenters before me who have done a wonderful job introducing us to Microsoft Fabric. So I just thought that it should be very nice if we can have a project that will touch on the major experiences. Those are the personal within Microsoft Fabric. So the project I had worked on, so I was just going to walk us through it, and then we are going to be doing something around Power BI, Synapse Engineering, Data Factory, and also the data science experience part of Microsoft Fabric. However, the other personalized Microsoft Fabric, which include the data activator and real-time analytics and all of that. But these four major ones are the one that our project today is going to be touching on.
Francis, I think you have muted yourself.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes. So it was the moment you came to this slide. So you might have to re-say everything you wanted to say about this slide.
Okay. So as I was saying that the whole idea of this project is just to predict how peaceful our world is going to be in the next few years. And you can do that by using the Global Peace Index. This metric is actually computed by the Vision for Humanity. So Using this type of index to measure pace and see how pace or what is going to be, we allow us to do some sort of data ingestion, which is the data engineering side of things. Also allow us to do visualization, where we are going to be understanding the trend of how peaceful our world was 10 years ago, how it is now, and then we are going to be forecasting into the future using both Power BI trend analysis, and also maybe you want to do the machine learning for advanced analytics and see what the position of the world is going to be. As we all know, what is going on in so many other areas um, of the world, Ukraine and Russia, Israel, and the other countries that are in war. Yeah. So this is the excuse me. This is the website where I got the data set from. So it's just a composite index measuring the peacefulness of countries made up of 23 quantitative and qualitative indicators, each weighted on a scale of 1 to 5. So the lower the score, the more peaceful our world is. So underlying here on this website, you have a global map where the areas in red are where there is no peace, and the areas in the green are where we have relative peace. So this data has been updated yearly. So I had extracted this data last year, but going back to the website this year, I realized that I do not have access to download it. So, however, I have the CSV file with me, so which I already uploaded in the GitHub repository. I'm going to be dropping the link to that repo in the chat so that we can just use it to work along with the data sets. So before we actually go into the demo session in full, this is the architecture of the problem we are going to be solving. As we all know, Microsoft Fabric is sitting on a one-lake environment, which is your data environment. What OneDrive is to Office is what OneLake is to your Microsoft Fabric, where all your data is stored. And then from there, you have your workspace. Like the name implies, just co-working space, where myself, a data analyst, is working in that space, a data engineer also working in that space, a data scientist also working in that space. So we are going to be working through this architectural diagram to solve our problem. So let me just quickly go through this architectural diagram before we now get hands-on. So the one lake is where your data will be sitting, and then of course you have your workspace. So from the workspace is where you want to ingest your data and make your data available for whoever wants to use it, either a data analyst or a data scientist or even a business user, as the case may be. So that will take us to switching to your Synapse engineering experience of Fabric, where you create your lake house and then you use your data factory for your data orchestration. So that way you have your data available in your lakehouse. So from your lakehouse, you may want to do your transformation depending on what you want to do. In our case now, for those that are coming from Power BI background, data flow Gen 2 is essentially a Power Query online. So you can use that to do your data transformation. And also you can then put that data flow also within a pipeline, which is going to allow you to orchestrate the data movement and maybe even automate things around it. So from there, our data is now available. Then you can now switch to a data science experience, which allow us, which we still have access to the lake house, and then from there you can use a notebook to write your code, either PySpark code or whatever code you want to write to build your machine learning model. So for that, we are going to be doing some time series forecasting. Remember, I had said we are going to be checking how peaceful our world was 10 years ago, and then how peaceful it is right now, and where are we going to be in the next couple of years. So I picked two models. I'm not a data scientist, but then we are now in the era of AI where you can get in Microsoft ecosystem, we call it co-pilots. While you are the pilot, and the co-pilot is there to assist you. So I was able to come up with a model around Ironman model, which is a time series forecasting model. And also I have a Facebook Prophet model, which is actually an embedded sample model within Fabric environment, which I'm still going to show us later in the course of this session. And then also we are going to just do a Power BI to just see a trend of how things have been and where we are heading to. Then of course we can also access data from your lake house and use your SQL endpoints to create your semantic model. That's your data set. It used to be data set, but now the new nomenclature for that is semantic model. And then lastly, you now have your reporting. So you build your reporting on this data that you've made available within your lake house. However, as I'm working through this project, I'm also going to be using a new feature by Microsoft Fabric, which was announced, I think, 2 or 3 months ago. That's task flow. So task flow gives us an idea of the flow of order in which all of these fabric assets are going to be created. Then it just gives us a sense of, okay, before this happens, then this has to happen first. And then it just give an idea for somebody that was not there when you were doing the project to see what was created and the dependency. Just like how we have lineage view and also the list view on your workspace. Lineage view just give you the dependency, show you the data source, show you the depending report, and of course, if that report has a dashboard, so you can see that dependency on every asset within your workspace. So we are going to use that task flow as we proceed on this project. So that will be the end of the slideshow because it's going to be a really hands-on session. So I'll just go into my Fabric environment, which you can always get to going to app.powerbi.com. So that will take you to your Fabric environment. Then that is where you do all the magic around Microsoft Fabric. So but before we start again, this is the website. Let me just drop the link to the website in the chat right now so that others can see it. So that's the link to the website. Then I'll also be dropping the link to the GitHub repository where you can actually get access to the full data sets. So that's the link to the GitHub repository for the data set. So before I continue again, I just want to give us an idea of what our data sets look like. So this is the data sets. We have various countries. We have the ISO 3 code and also the global peaks index. Again, remember I had mentioned that on the website that the index is measured on how peaceful it is, weighted on scale of 1 to 5. The lower the score, the more peaceful the country is. So let's just cast our mind from this into the data set now. So this is the data set that we have. So for Afghanistan, for example, now you can see rated from 1 to 5 seems to be a bit higher compared to a country like UAE that has 1. So this is the various GPI index that is being used to measure how peaceful our world is. So the full data set has about 4 tabs, but we still also have the overall score. So this is the overall score. Then you have the country, you have the safety and security, you have military presence, and then if there is an ongoing conflict. So all these summed together give us the overall score. So we want to know the trend of peace in each of these countries and then where we are going to be. So the latest report now has given us data into 2024 already, which one can painstakingly just go there manually and populate since they do not allow to download the full data sets in a full Excel file like this. So this is what our data sets look like. However, in the course of working on it, I realized that I want to do some sort of data enrichment in the sense that I know I have countries here, but I also want to be
Francis, do you know what might have happened? Your audio just went off when you said data enrichment. I hope it's not at my end. Is anybody else hearing him so I can be sure I'm not the one wrongly interrupting? But again, it's easier for me to draw attention. Okay, all right. So Francis, it's not just me. Do you think maybe your audio disconnected? Just hope. Let me see if I can ring his phone. Okay, good. So you can hear me, but you can't hear Francis. I think he has discovered too, because I can see he stopped sharing. So maybe he's taking an action. Maybe he's like disconnecting and reconnecting. Okay. We'll just wait a bit for him to reconnect. But thanks for confirming. At least you've helped us to identify that the issue is from his hand. So we are just waiting for him to reconnect. I guess he's trying to reconnect. Yes, he's reconnected. Do you want to say anything, Francis? Can you try?
Yes, can you hear me,
Okay,
please?
now, yeah, yes, yes.
Yeah, sorry, my internet just went off. I don't know why.
Okay.
So I don't
So
know,
where
where
you
was the last part?
stopped, you said you were going to enrich the data. You wanted to mention what you wanted to put
Oh,
to
okay.
add to the data, but it was that enrichment part that we lost
Okay.
the audio.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Michael. So I apologize for the network glitch. Yes, so as I was saying, this is the data set I have from Vision for Humanity. So I want to do some sort of data enrichment to make it to add more context to the data set. So I know I have countries, but I also want to be able to break them down into various continents and see what is going on per continent. So I also have added that data into the GitHub repository. So I have the country, then the ISO 3 code, and also the continent. So we can always use the ISO 3 code to look up the continent vis-a-vis the various country that we are checking. So this is the GitHub repository. All the files that you need are actually uploaded in here. So let's just get straight into it. So once you are already in your Fabric environment, like I said, you want to just create that workspace that you'll be using. So I'm going to create a new workspace, and I'll call it office hour. I'll call it office hour, and then from there, maybe I can just come to advanced tab and probably be sure is on Fabric trial license because I'm using the trial environment. Then I want to change this semantic model to large format, right? So then I click on apply. So my workspace will be created for me. So that will be the first part of what we are doing here. So now the workspace is being created, then we continue and create other assets that we needing to create our project. So like I said, there is a new feature called task which we are going to be exploring as we even build on this project. So our workspace is currently empty, but because of the new task which you are going to be accessing, you can always click on this icon and then you have the task flow created for you. So the first thing we want to need is where we are going to be putting our data set. So for that, we need to switch to a data engineering experience. So from that data engineering experience, you create a lakehouse. So these are all the assets that you can create with your data engineering experience. You can see a lakehouse, a notebook, Spark job, pipeline, and GraphQL API, and even a notebook. So let me just create a lakehouse that we are going to be using to hold our data. So I'll click on this and then I can give my lakehouse a name. So let me just call it LH. That will be the name of the lakehouse. Then I click on create. So that will create a brand new lakehouse for us. And like we know, lakehouse can take both structured and unstructured data. By unstructured data, I can upload CSV file, XML file, or any kind of file, or even package file, which is the data format file. So our lakehouse is empty. There are various options available for us to create to ingest data into our lakehouse. You can upload the file. You can actually use data flow gen 2, which is Power Query Online, then data pipeline, that's data factory, or even a notebook. So I'm going to be uploading the files that we are going to be using for this project here. So I'll click on file and I'll click on upload. So you can either upload right from here, or even if you have one link explorer installed in your computer, you can then put it there in your local environment, and then it's going to reflect in your lakehouse. So let me just quickly show us what it looks like. It's just like your window explorer. So this is my one link explorer. So every workspace you created will be represented like a folder within your local machine. So the workspace I created now, by the time I have a sync with it, then you see it here as a folder. So whatever file you want to use, you can just dump it in this your file in your local computer, and then it's going to reflect in the cloud environment. So if I just refresh this now, I should see the new workspace that I created being represented here as a folder. So let me just go back to the Power BI cloud environment. So from there, I can just come to my file right here, then I click on file, then I can click on upload files. So I'm going to be uploading the two files that I need, which is which is this country and continent for the data arrangement I talked about. And also I'll also be uploading, I should have put the second one too. I'll also be uploading the one for the actual GPI data, which is also a CSV file. And I'll click on open. Then I click on upload. So I didn't upload this first one. So let me just pick it again, which is country and continent. Country and continent. You see the file, then I click on open, then I click on upload. So the first one is uploaded, and then our two files are now available within our lake house. So now we've created our lake house. But remember, I said I was going to be showing us how to even work with the task flow, and then we can see the flow and then the sequence of how these assets are created. Now I have my lake house created. So let me go back to my workspace environment so that we can see what we have. So by default, when you create a lake house, two other assets are created with it, which is your semantic model and also your SQL endpoints, which allows you to query and interact with data that you have in your lakehouse. So now we have our lakehouse. But what is our lakehouse doing for us? It's going to be doing a storage. So I can just click on this little arrow here. Once I click that, then I have my task flow. So I can use this to adjust the Canva. So you have select task flow. There are some pre-built task flow within Fabric environment that I can use. These are general ones, basic data analytics, SQL endpoints, Medallion architecture, and all of that. Then if you click on any of them, let me just click on Medallion architecture, for example. Then I click on select. So it just gives me all the assets that I need for that flow. You can see that high volume data, bronze layer, initial process for your transformation, silver layer, further transformation, your gold layer, and then you are doing your visualization, and finally you're also doing your machine learning project. So, but this is not what we are doing. So I can just delete this task flow now. Then I'm going to create my own task flow from scratch. So to do that, I'm going to click on add task, and then there are a number of options here. You have your general, you have get data, you have store. But you know that we've created a lakehouse, which essentially is just storing data for us. So I can just put this stored data where I then have this pictorial representation of this. So you can either create a new asset and attach it to this task, or you can attach existing one. So to create a new one, you can click on new item, and then recommended, you can either create a lake house, a warehouse, or a data mart. So these are the assets within your Fabric environment that can store data. But in our case now, we are using a lake house. So if I'm creating it the first time, then I can do this. But because I had created my lakehouse first, then I have to just click on this attachment like icon here, and then I can then associate this lakehouse into it. So that will give us binding this lakehouse into this task flow. So you can see now that we have 3 items here. So basically, I know that after storing my data, I also want to make it clean. I want to transform it. So I can come here again, click on add data. So is it getting data? Of course, I want to do prepare data. So my data is not exactly in the shape I want it to be. So if I click on prepare data, then I can just drag it here, and then you can always link them. Over on the extreme end, once you have this this colored edge, you can just drag it to the next task that you'll be doing, and then you can just see the flow of task that way. Or you can even just come on this add here and click on connector. So then that gives a graphical interface where you can just select the task and then the task that you are linking it to. But we have done that already, so I will just click on cancel. So for this now, we need to prepare our data. Let's not forget the way our data is. Now we want to bring a continent into our data, and then also this data is not in the best of shape. We want to be able to see how the GPI is increasing from year to year. You can see that we have some sort of horizontal orientation for our data from 2008 up to 2023. But I want to change some sort of vertical orientation so that we can now see a trend of how GPI is increasing per country. So all of that, we are going to be doing that in this stage of our task, which is where we are going to be preparing our data. So I can just add a new item to do that. But before I do that, let me just go back into my lakehouse. So if I click on this, it automatically just filter my workspace. Now my workspace have this look. Now let me collapse the task flow view. Ask this look where we have the name, we have the location, which is the workspace, the type of the assets, then the type of task and what is associated to the owner and every other metadata that you have in here. But because I have my task flow selecting just store, all I'm going to be seeing is going to be any item that is associated with store. So I can even rename this task by clicking on edit here and just let me just put store data to be more intuitive. Then if you want to describe it, you can just type here, or even I can take this out, then you can click on save. And the same thing, if you click on this, you can also click on edit, prepare, and maybe transform data. And of course, this description is almost accurate, but you can always put in your own description as the case may be. Then I click on save. So once I do that, I have this. So now I need to go back into my lakehouse. So once I have my store data selected, then all the assets associated with store data is being highlighted for me. So I can just click on this lakehouse now. So I need to just load my flat file, my CSV file into data lake table, where we can now then use our data flow or maybe our data pipeline to bring it in and transform it better. So now I made one little mistake, and I'm glad I did, because you can only load data that is in CSV file into your lakehouse. So if I click on this ellipsis right here, then I'll have this load new table. But for XLX file, that feature is not available as of today. So your file has to be in CSV format before you can load it directly into data lake format. So let me just take this out and actually upload the CSV version of the file. So yeah, so I can just come here, click these three ellipses, then I click on upload file, then I just navigate into my local machine where I have the file stored. Then I'll pick country and continent, which is the CSV file of it. And then I'll click on open, and then I can click on upload, and then I'll upload the CSV file for me. So I'm glad I even made this mistake. So it's updating my file now. So now I can click on GPI data, then I load it into a new table. So once I click on new table, then it's telling me that I cannot name this admin space. So I can just put maybe like an underscore, or I close the space. So GPI is global page index, let's not forget. And then of course, since the CSV file, I know that my first column is my header name. So you can click on this info icon, then it tells you what that is all about. And so you have all this nice feature around Microsoft Fabric. Then I can click on load. So that will load the file for me into a data format. So once that is available, then I can have my data format here. So let's give it a while for it to load. So I will do the same thing for my country file also. So I think because this is loading, this one is grayed out. Okay, now, so this one has successfully been loaded. So I can do the same thing for my country data. So now it's available here. And then I can do the same thing for my country and continent data. Then this is fine. So I can just click on load. So I have the data both in CSV file and also in data table file. So once the data is available, and I know that I can access my data either from the lakehouse itself or even from the SQL endpoint. So this is also loaded for me. So here I can switch between my lakehouse view and also my SQL endpoint view. So before I even go into the transformation proper, I want to quickly show us something around this SQL endpoint. So I have about 3 tabs here. I have data view, query view, and then the modeling view. So on this query view, I can actually do visual query. So remember I had said that I want to do data enrichment. So if I come to visual query, which is a very nice feature, you can even extract your SQL for people that don't like to code. For example, I can just drag my GPI data here. can drag this GPI data into the Canva, and then I have a pictorial representation of that query. And also I can drag the country and continent data also here. So let me drag again. So I have that also here. So now remember that the only thing that we need from this continent data is just the continent being attached to this file. So but I can always click on this plus icon right here, then I can do merge, just like you do your Power Query online. So if I do merge query, then I can pick the ISO, which is the unique identifier in this case, or primary key, and I can use that to merge my continent and country table. So I pick the ISO also. So then I can click on OK. I can see that all countries merge, really. So, but we are not going to use this, but I just want to use to demonstrate some of the cool features that we have in Microsoft Fabric. Then I can just click on expand, just like you do your Power Query online. The only thing I need to pick is just the continent. Then I can click on OK. So assuming you want to have like the SQL, corresponding SQL, I can click on this view SQL, and then I have the underlying SQL script for that process that we did, which is essentially a left join. But we are not going to be using this because I want my data to have, maybe let me take it slow here. So it's just a left join. So for those that are coming from SQL background, you can see that, okay, this is first the GPI data in our lakehouse in DBO schema and the name of the table, and it's been alias as outer. Then you are doing a left join with the country and continent data, and then you have that. So it's just one very cool feature I just like to show us. So now we can now go into our data transformation proper. So I will go back into our workspace where we have the lakehouse. So I want to create a new item here, which is our data flow, where we are going to use it to change the orientation of our data from that horizontal orientation to a vertical orientation. So I'll click on new item. So once I click on new item, as against me coming to switching my data experience here to data engineering experience, these are all the items within Microsoft Fabric that you can use to do your data transformation. You see that we have display here recommended items or all items. You switch to all items, then you have everything in Fabric. But of course, you cannot use a reflex for data cleaning and data preparation. So let's just stick with recommended items. So which of these items do you want to use for your transformation? In my case, I'm picking a data flow gen 2, which is essentially your Power Query online. So I will pick data flow gen 2, and then a data flow will be created for me. Let me click that again. So for some reason, okay, so it's created now. So that is loading up this for me. So because I clicked 3 times, I have data flow 3. So I'm sure there will be data flow 1 and 2 already. So once this is loaded up, then we can then pick the data that we have. So this is our Power Query interface. This is Power Query online. So I can just quickly rename this so that you don't get confused yourself. I can call data flow GPI. So that is fine. And I can now get my data. Now, one thing that is interesting is that since our data is already in your lakehouse, which is a Fabric environment, it helps performance. That's why my location is going to be more. And then I can then navigate into where I have my data, which is in the lakehouse that we created earlier. So if I click on view more, we have all the various data sources that you can connect to. Because our data is already in Fabric environment, so I can just filter down to Fabric environment, then I can see my lakehouse. So from my lakehouse, I have this interface where the connection will be automatically picked, and I can click on next. So right from there, I will allow this to load, and it's going to take me to the next screen where I will have access to all the workspace in my environment. So the workspace that we are working with is Office R. So you can always navigate to that workspace. You can expand this drop down, and then this is the lakehouse that we created. So within this lakehouse, we want to pick the data set that we want to be transformed. So these are the underlying optimization management views that is in the lakehouse, that comes with the lakehouse by default. But what we want to work with is this GPI data, which is now available for us, and also this country and continent data. So you can also preview it. So this is what we have for country, and also this is what we have for our GPI data. So I can then click on create, and then that will load my data for me in my Power Query online. So there is something I want us to pay attention to. One is the fact that on our Power Query desktop, when you right click on your query, you can always have a disable load. But in this case now, that is not available yet. But what suffices for that is the fact that once you are done doing your transformation, then you need to specify and add your data to destination, which we are going to do in just a second. So I just wanted to mention that. So that's the first thing. And also from Power Query desktop, you know, when you disable load, you have this in italics, but these ones, they are both straight. So it works in like a opposite direction. When I specify the destination of this data now, then this one becomes italics as against what we are used to in Power Query desktop. And then also the steps apply to, I have the source being one lake source, and then there are some icons in front of all the apply steps, which is this a cylindrical icon telling us that analysis was inconclusive, and then it just gives us an insight into query folding. Query folding essentially is your ability of a Power Query engine to be able to translate what is happening in Power Query to a corresponding SQL script, such that your Power Query engine is checking for your data from directly from the source, which has some performance implications. So it's always better that whatever transformation that you are doing has a feature for query folding to happen. So let me just click on this icon now, and then you can click on learn more, so you can always get more insight around query folding and what each of those icons specify. So this is query folding, and then you can see the icons. So this one in blue is saying that, tells you that the query up to this step is evaluated from the data source. That means query folding is available for this source. And this one, it cannot undergo query folding. Then this one is saying that it's my fault. This one, we don't even know the status. So these are the various indicators and what those icons represent within your apply steps environment. So let's go back to that. So I just wanted to mention that. So because I had used a lakehouse as my data source, even though the first step is inconclusive, I can see that this one is evaluating it directly from the source, which has performance implication. You may not appreciate this thing until you are working with a large data set. So the same thing applies for my GPI data. So let me just go to the last apply step so that I have my data in the format I want it to be. So the only transformation we are going to be doing here is just to do on pivot column. So what I just want to do is just to select my country and also select my ISO 3 code by holding down control on my keyboard so that I can select those two columns. Then I do a right click where I can then unpivot other column. So this unpivot under column is just going to give us a reorientation of our data sets in the shape we want us to be, so that we can then see the trend. So now we have Afghanistan appearing multiple times, but for different years. So I have Afghanistan, the ISO code, the year, and also the value of the GPI. So I then need to rename this to year. I can right click on it and click on rename. And click on rename. So I can just call this one year. Then I can also rename this one also. I'll just call it the GPI, which is the Global Peace Index. Then I just click on enter on my keyboard. So that is fine. And I also want to add my continent to this data, which is the actual arrangement I talked about earlier. So for that, I come to combine, which is there are a lot of combine you can do. Either you are doing an append or you are doing a query merging. So if I click on combine now, I can click on combine and do query merge or append. But what I want to do is actually merge query. So if you click on merge query, you have two options to that merge query or merge it as new. So I will just merge query as new so that I have an independent query. Now, this is one very nice feature too that we have in Fabric Power BI Online, where you can see the type of merge that you do, which is corresponding to our SQL join. This is telling us that is a left join, this is right join, a full outer join, inner join, and all the other kinds of join. So merging it with country and continent data, which is going to be this. Then I'm merging it on this ISO 3 code here, also an esoteric code here, then it's estimating this match. Sometimes you don't always get this selection done because there are some other settings that you may want to do in Power Query Online. So let me just click on OK for now. Then I will go to Options tab, which is not on Power Query Desktop. So if I click on these options, and I have all these settings that I can do. For example, let's say you are ingesting data from an external source. You need to come here, come to your data load feature, data load under your data flow, then pick this regional setting and also your privacy setting where you can now allow data from multiple sources. That's if you have data from an external source. But I just say I should mention this. So if you don't have this check, you may not be able to load data from external source. Assuming I was trying to pick my country and consent data from online, I would have needed to check this so that I'll be able to load that into my Fabric environment. So it's just then another thing that is interesting option that is here, I think is something around enabling query folding. I'm not sure. So you can do all those settings in the private setting and then the scale. Yes, you can allow fast copy, just like when you have your pipeline. You know, it is said that when you are moving data in bulk, you should use a pipeline. But recently, they added this feature to your data flow. So if you have a very large data set, all you have to do is to come to this scale and then check allow for fast copy. And then no matter the size of the data, it will perform as though you are using a copy activity in your pipeline. So those are the two things I want to mention under this options tab. So now we have this done. Now we have this query. Now I need to rename this query also because it's just taking the operation name that I performed. So I'll just call it GPI. So that's the name I want to call this query. And remember that we already have this continent and GPI data, which is the raw one inside our Fabric environment. So for the sake of organization, I can just right click on this and I can right click on this and then I move to a new group and I can just call them raw data and I click on OK. So once I click on OK, then I can also drag this into that folder. Then I have this just GPI left. So I can right click on GPI also and I click it and move it to a new group just for best practice and organization sake. Then I can call it let's just call it transformed data. Then I click on OK. So now remember that unlike your Power Query desktop, you need to specify the destination of your data set. Then another interesting feature here is that when you right click on any of your query, you can actually enable staging or disable staging. For data flow, most of the time you probably don't need to enable staging depending on your data set, but it's a bit tricky as to what you want to do around enable staging. Enable staging is just a must when you are loading into a data warehouse, but because we are loading into a lakehouse, it's not exactly necessary. Instead of actually enhancing the performance, it may actually be counterproductive to enable staging for a lakehouse since we are not ingesting into a warehouse. And because I enable require fast copy, then I have this option right here to check it. So let me just uncheck enable staging now. Now I need to check these other two queries, which are the raw data. I can see that the destination here is not specified, which is exactly what I want. I don't want these two queries to be loaded again into my lakehouse. So it's just this I want to load. So I can click on this now, then I can click on add to destination here, or I can even do it from here. So, but let me just click on add to destination. So when I click on add to destination, these are the 4 options that are available as of today. And we know that our destination is a lakehouse. So I can click on a lakehouse. So, but before I do that, I think I'm yet to expand this. So let me expand this so that we now have our continent. So I'll uncheck all. So I just pick on continent only. Then I click on OK. So once I do click on OK, then I have my continent attached. Then I can now specify the destination now. Then I click on lake house. And this is automatically picked. Then I click on next. So once I click on next, and I have this interface where I specify the destination. Then if I want to still change the table name, I can still do it here, but there is no need for that. So the workspace we are working on is inside the office workspace. Then I click on a drop down. Then I pick my lake house as my destination. The table name is fine. and I'll click on next. And once I click on next, then I have this interface where I'm doing some sort of column mapping, which is fine, and the data type and all of those nice things. Then I click on save setting. So immediately I do that, you realize that this is now italicized as against this and what we are used to in Power Query desktop. So now that all this is done, then I can click on publish. So it's that I publish now or I publish it, but I already click on publish. So we now have our data in the shape that we want it in our workspace. So let me collapse my task flow view, and then we can see what we have here. Now I have just my lakehouse. That's because within my task flow, I have selected just store data, which is the flow which we associate that lakehouse. So if I just click on any blank space, then I have my complete lakehouse view. So I have this data flows there. So let me just collapse, but because I click on create data flow multiple times, I have some many data flows. So let me just delete these other ones. So the one that we worked on is this one, data flow GPI, and you can see that it's still loading. So let me delete these other ones that we don't need them really. It was when I was clicking that multiple ones were created. So let me delete this data flow 1 and also delete this data flow 2. So is this data flow GPI that is ingesting our data flow? So I can open up my task flow again, and then I can now add this data flow that is loading into this task flow. So I'll click, no, it's not a new item. So because I had created it before, I can just click on this attachment. Then I just check this. Then I click on select. So within my workspace, I can see what is associated with each of the tasks. So the lakehouse associated with store data, data flow associated with prepare and transform my data. So now we have our data within our lakehouse. So while it is loading, let's go back into our lakehouse and check what we have in here. So because it's still loading, we can just click on refresh here and see if the clean data is not available. Let's give it some time. Okay, so it's because it's loading, so we still have this file formatted. So let me just click on refresh one more time. Yes, so now we have the clean data name GPI, which I can just always click on, and then I have our data set available. So that's basically everything around the data engineering side for this project, and also we are using Taskflow as we are progressing. So now we have this data. So if you look at this GPI data now, you see that it is different from what we worked on. So what we have here is just like the horizontal orientation of it, but when we now do the transformation with Power Query Online, which is data flow gen 2, we now have these two data consolidated into one and probably have a longer data as against having a wide data. So we have each country, the ISO code, and then the year, and also the GPI. I think there is something I forgot to do in my data flow, but I think we can always go back to our data flow and do that. So for this year, I want to keep it in a date time format because of what I'm going to be doing later with the trend and also with the time series forecasting. So I can go back to my workspace. So within my workspace, I have my data flow. So I will click on lakehouse. No, it's data flow I'm going to. And then I want to quickly change the data type into date time because of time series forecasting we are going to be doing. So here, I think I can do it either from this raw data right here, or I can do it here, but I think I prefer to do it from the raw source, and then I will change this one to dates first. If I change to this time first, the machine probably just going to be confused. So then I will change it to date time now. So I can add a new step, and then that will be available in this time format. So now if I come back to this one, it should have updated to the date time because it's the one that is 70. So I can click on this, then I can click on publish now. So that should update the data type for the year for me within my lakehouse. So let me just wait for that to load. So as that is loading, now we have different experiences. Everything that we have done is within the data synapse engineering experience, which is the data engineering experience. But because of time, I don't want to put it in a pipeline because it's just one month project. But I'll just be proceeding now into the visualization, which is the Power BI, once my data flow is available and is fully loaded for me. So let me check. Okay, it's still loading. Let me just go into my lakehouse and see if I have my data type updated now. So I'll click on refresh. So let's give it a while for it to load. Okay, let me do it again. Just to be sure, let me see if my data flow is downloading. So I will check my data flow. Okay, it's still loading. So while that is going on, now we want to do some other things with the data science side of things. So here I can switch my personal to data science experience. So these are the other experience, data warehousing, real-time intelligence. So I can switch to data science experience. So in data science experience, these are all the items that you can create. You can create your ML, you can create your experiment notebook environment. You can even import a notebook. Then you can use sample. Now I said that we are going to be talking about Facebook prophet model, which is a time series forecasting model. So if I click on use sample, I can see some sample model in our environment. I can see some sample model in our environment. These are some sample model. So which is the one I use. So I have this time series model, which is the one I adopted and tweaked slightly. So let me just see this. Click on it. So it's going to open up a sample notebook for us and show us what is in that notebook, but we are not going to be using it. I just wanted to show us that you can have some sample model within your data science experience that you can adopt or you can tweak into your own use case as the case may be. So let's this notebook load for us now. So, so this is the model that I actually adopted for this forecasting. So I just tweak it and fit it into what I'm going to show us later. So these are all the code for this Facebook, for this model. Is called a Facebook model, a prophet model. So you have the documentation for it and all of that. So we just have this nice feature within Microsoft Fabric where you don't have to start everything from scratch. But this is not what we are interested in. But I just said I should mention this and show us this, and then you can always change it and adapt it accordingly for our use case. So let me go back to our workspace now. Then let me close this notebook. Then within our workspace, I want to be sure my data flow is downloading, which I'll be okay, it's downloading now. So let me go to my lakehouse and I can refresh now. See if that will be loaded. But if it's wasting time, maybe I will just close it and then reload the data flow entirely so that we'll have the date time format in our lakehouse. Okay, so now it's updated to be in date time format, which is fine. So now we can now go into our own parts of data visualization. So if I go back into my workspace, then I want to create a trend. So the trend we are going to be creating is going to be auto-generated, but I'm also going to show us another report that I built with my Power BI desktop. So let me just open it as I'm talking now so that to not take time. So for that, within my workspace, let me collapse my task flow view, and then there is the sample notebook that we created also. So let me delete that. So I have that deleted now. So within my workspace now, within my lakehouse rather, I'm clicking my lakehouse, and then in my lakehouse, I want to create a semantic model, which we are going to be using for our reporting. Now, if I click on semantic model, then I have this interface where I want to specify the data that I want to include in my semantic model. So, and of course, it is this GPI data. So I can just give my semantic model a name. So I can call it GPI semantic model, semantic link rather. semantic link, then I can click on confirm. So once I click that semantic link and then I go back into my workspace, then I have it in there. Then I'm going to mention why I have to create this semantic link separately as against just using anything within my link house. So once this is done loading, then I'll show you what I mean. Okay, still loading. All right, so is now loaded. So within my workspace now, I should have my semantic model. So I can then use this to create my measure, create my report, and whatever thing I want to do. But I don't want to take this approach. I want to take an approach of auto creating my report. So I will just exit this one because I had created one before. So I will just show us what I have created because of the limitation of what we can do within Power BI environments in the cloud as against Power BI desktop. So I'll go into my workspace now. Remember, we are working with task flow. So this is the semantic model. Now, I want to be able to create an auto report from this semantic link. And remember that when we create that in there, we have a semantic model also that is created with it. However, because this semantic model has multiple data, we have that GPI raw data and the enriched data in there. So if I click on this ellipsis now and click on auto create report, it will not be able to do that because it will not be able to identify which data set exactly we are pointing to. And that is why it's important that you have to create your own semantic model and pick data set that you are talking to. So we have this semantic model now. So I can then click on this semantic model that we created. Then I click on auto create report. So, and in matter of seconds, I have a report that can even just show us the trend of global peace index. And then of course, you can always tweak it to your taste and a more presentable version of the report. So now I have something ready made for me that I can work with and continue doing my work. So once this is ready, then quickly also I'll save this report and then I'll then associate it to my task flow. So this way now, we have also touched on Power BI experience within Microsoft Fabric. So this is loading up. Let's give it some seconds. Okay, so let me just click on save. So that as it's loading, I also click on save and then yes, it's within this office hour workspace. So I can just call it a GPI reports. Then I click on save. So once I click on save, the report will be saved for me. So I can go back into my workspace. I don't know, maybe it's network or a glitch. So let me go back into my workspace. Then I believe that, yes, I want to save it. Yes. GPI reports. Okay, I think it's loading up. So let's just be patient with it. Yeah, so my report is saved now. Let's even see what it looks like if it's going to allow us. So ideally, it should give us a little visualization as based on data sets that we created in our semantic model. Right, so why that is happening, let me just open the one that I created in Power BI Desktop and I will explain why I created it in Power BI Desktop. So I want to be able to do some advanced visualization, which is not available on the online version as of today. So it's still loading up. So now, whatever you have in your Power BI environment or in your Fabric environment, you can always come to your one link hub and then you can connect to it, which brings us to talk about the direct lake mode, which is the new mode that is available for your data. Now before now, we used to have a direct query and import mode. While direct query gives you the ability to have large data sites and almost near real time, and import mode give you that speed. But direct query, direct lake mode brings these two features together, and then you can access your data right from here. So this is still loading up. So let me see which one is okay. So I don't know. Let me just load this entire page now. Yeah, so this is what I created in Power BI desktop. So showing us like a trend of the GPI. Let me just zoom in a bit so that we can see what we have by connecting using the Power BI direct link mode, and then we can
Francis,
see this. Sir?
can you? Yeah. So your screen has frozen, but I guess it might be internet related. So I think what you can let me tell you where we are. What we've been seeing for like the past maybe 40 seconds. The Power BI
Okay.
with you trying to connect to the model. So it's just frozen. You trying to connect, and that's what has been showing for some seconds. So I'm thinking maybe if you stop sharing and you reshare, it might reset it, and we'll start seeing
Ah,
what you.
oh my God. So now that we auto create report, I
No
wanted
worries,
everybody
we'll
to
pick
see
it
that.
up. Where you've been very the way you've been explaining, I could imagine what you are clicking. I just felt I should tell you.
Yeah. So this is the report that was
Okay,
created
hold on,
automatically.
we're still waiting to see
Loading
your
up.
screen.
Okay.
Oh, I know what's going great too. I don't know why network wants to now at the peak of it for us. You're sharing already, right?
Yes, I'm sharing already.
Not coming up. Is anybody in the audience seeing his screen? So that maybe if it's just me, then that is great. Means that the problem is mine. Can somebody in the audience mention yes, no, one yes, two no? Tolu said yes. I mean, like, can you see his PBI? It was actually sharing a PBI, Power BI report. Can you see? Okay, a lot of people are saying it's a mixed. Okay, now I don't know which one. I can see his report. Just go ahead. I don't know. What should we do? Should we?
Let me
I
just reshare. Let me reshare so everybody can see. It would be nice if everybody can see.
can see. Okay. Okay, great. I think it's good now. Uh Francis. Francis, it's good now. I hope. Francis. Yeah, I can't see the but we can see the screen now. If you can hear us, can you say something? Okay, somebody said it's not good yet. I think it's a mixed, but I don't want us to. Hopefully, maybe the recording will pick it. And maybe, like I think Tolulope said, for those of us that cannot see, maybe we can just disconnect and reconnect. Maybe that might help us. Because if some of us can see it, then for sure it means that it means it's not at least from Francis' side. If it is from his side, then everybody should not be able to see. It shouldn't be a mixed, right? Francis, we cannot hear you. Are you still able to say something?
I'm here. I have to drop off and join again so
Okay,
that
okay,
everybody
all
can
right.
see.
Okay,
Just confirm when you can see my screen now.
okay, sir. We are trying to.
Can you see it now?
Watching. You've shared your screen, right?
Yes, I have.
Is anybody seeing the screen yet? I have to. So what I did is I opened multiple screens on my end so I can even track
Okay.
faster. Well, I've not yet seen. Oh, everybody is saying like no. So this one it seems to be unanimous. Like nobody has said
Good.
yes. So just I know Teams can be problematic. Just
Yeah.
reshare, but don't disconnect. At least we can hear you is still one good thing. Once anybody says they can see, we'll carry on.
Okay.
Hopefully your recording will catch it too.
Okay. So I've stopped and reshared now. So hopefully
Okay.
some persons can see it. Is it up?
Watching. Uh, uh, now this time around. Before it used to show like a white screen. Then some of us were seeing it. This time around, it's not even acting as if you are sharing anything. It's not going into a presentation mode for us.
I stopped and shared again.
Do we have any Microsoft Teams expert in the house? What do you suggest? Because I'm wishing maybe I had not even spoken that time that some of us were seeing it. Because that time it looked like, yes, it was manageable. Like some saw it, some didn't see. Is any Microsoft Teams person in the house with ideas of what we can do? What do you think we can do? Hey, I think it's about. Yeah, don't cancel. I think it's going to show now. I can see something trying to come up.
God.
Hey, then it's gone off again. Maybe it was actually working. It was just slow. It's trying to come up again.
Okay.
Is anybody seeing the screen? Yeah. I see something. I see the screen now.
All right, so I apologize for the glitch.
No,
Yes.
we understand. Yes,
So
go
this
on,
is
sir.
the auto-created reports. At least it's a good starting point. One can see the trend of the GPI, which is the Global Index, and we can see that the pace of our world has been disturbed in the last 20 years or thereabout. So you can see, but then this is not exactly accurate because we're having a sum which is just summing for all the countries that we have on our data set. So one can easily just change and edit these reports and just let me do that so that I won't have to freeze this screen again. So let me just do this. I can do a customize mode for my visualization. So I can do this. Now it's not responding. Anyway, so what I wanted to do is just to change it to like average, which is still going to give us the same trend. You can see my screen, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, let me just save this instead. So let me just call it GPI reports. GPI reports. At least I will have that. So I will click on save, and I'm saving it to office hour workspace, and I'll click on save. So I have this report saved. So now I have something to start with, which is our Power BI experience. So we can then go back into our workflow and then associate both the semantic link and this report that we've created into that workflow. So now we have this, even though it's showing sum of GPI by year, which is not exactly correct because it has sum up for all the countries 2008. So what would be more appropriate is if you can click on this personalized mode, and then I click on this, or I can click on this ellipsis right here and then change it to average or something. So, but because of time, let me just go into my workspace, which is Poppy Hour workspace, and then I can create a now it has saved multiple times. It's about 3 versions of it. But anyway, so let me just open up our task flow so I can add a new item now, which is visualize data. So which I can then drop right in front here. I can just use this to arrange it. I can arrange, then I can just over here where I just see this green, then I drag and drop into this. So from the data that we stored in our lakehouse to what we prepare with data flow, and then we visualize. Now the last level of this data flow really is going to be the data science part of it. So from here now we have data engineering, we have Power BI, and then I want to add one more flow to it, which is going to be to analyze and train data. So if I add this, then I can bring it also right in front, and then I can always come here, drag and drop, and then I point it to the new task. But what item are we adding? We can either create a new item or we can attach an existing item. So for this, I'm not going to attach any item to it. So for visualize, I'm going to attach those assets that we created, which are the reports that we created. So because it created multiple, let me just add all of them to it. And then the semantic link also, I'll click on that, then I click on select. So every item within our workspace is associated to a flow. So somebody that is not here when we are creating this, we can see the dependency of how all these items are related within our workspace. So if I collapse this now, you can see that we all have items speaking to data storage, speaking to visualization, and items also speaking to data preparation. So I can then expand again. And again, before task, what we have in Power BI is just this list view, then which we can also change to lineage view. So lineage view also shows that dependency, not as intuitive as the new task. This is what we have. We know that our data is sitting in a lake house. Then we have your data flow, and then you can see your SQL endpoints connected to your report. And then now we want to do the data science bit of it. So I can switch back to a list view. And from my list view, I can always take it back to my task. So I think there's a disconnect there. So I'm trying to reload the page. So now, even though I'm able to create a report within my Fabric environment, but I want to create a much more robust report, which is now available on Power BI report creation on Fabric environment. So that's why I use my desktop environment. So what I want to create, I want it to be as much as possible to be similar to what we have on the website itself. Because if you actually scroll down the website, you can see the map, you can see no data, you have the key, more peaceful, less peaceful, and all of that. So Power BI can also create a similar report as this. So that's why I then went into my Power BI desktop. Then I can click on my one lake up. Then I can click on my lake house. Then from there, I can connect into my data set that is sitting within my lake house to create this report, which will give us that semantic direct lake mode rather, as against the import mode and direct query mode. So direct lake is the hybrid version of both import and direct query. So you can just pick the data set and then you can do all the magic that you want to do. So, but because I had done that before now, I've just cancelled. I just wanted to show. So this is the full report in a singular view. Let me just zoom out. So we have this map showing us where it is peaceful and where it's not peaceful. And then you have these reason bar charts that is showing us how countries are moving year on year. So this is 2018 up to the most recent data that we have. So you can see some countries that were below the value chain are now jumping up and all of that. And then also we have the trend of the GPI. Let me zoom in. So we have the trend of the GPI also, and then year on year change. In this case now, we want to have a lesser value for our GPI. Remember that the scale of 1 to 5, the lesser it is, the better for us. But when it's on the high side, that means it's not good. So where we have red bars means that the year on year change is a positive one, which is not what we want. We want our GPI to actually be coming down. So historically, from data that we have, is just this year, which is 2013, and also 2014, that the GPI globally came down. But apart from these 2 years, we can see that the trend of GPI has been going up at a pace that may not be ideal for our work. And we also have top 10 most peaceful and then least peaceful countries too. And of course, which is going to be consistent with what we have in our world. You can see all these countries are war-ridden countries. You have Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, Russia, and all those countries that are war-prone. So this is what we have. And also we have like a tooltip where you have the GPI per country, and also you have like the map of that country. This is Canada, for example. Because I'm a good Nigerian, I have to show my country also. We have Nigeria and all of that. So you can create this and then have that also published into your workspace. And because you are connecting to your semantic link, that removes duplicating your data set within your Fabric environment. However, some of these visuals are just custom visual. This reason by is a custom visual that I imported. And also I did a little forecasting that you can do with your line charts once you go to your advanced setting. So even though our data stopped at 2023, but I was still able to forecast up to about 5 years forward. So you can see the upper band and the lower band of the forecasting that is natively available with your line charts in Power BI. So we've done the data engineering parts. We've also done the Power BI part. And within data engineering, we've done the Synapse engineering, but because of time, I don't want to put it in a pipeline. So the last part is the data science part, which shows us a sample notebook that has some model within us. So now we have created the data flow, then we need to add an item to it. But what item can we add? Let me click on new item. Then we can see that we can add any of this. But because for the sake of time, I also have the notes I'm going to be using for the data model in the GitHub repository, which we can always download. So we are just going to switch into data science experience, or even data engineering as the case may be. So within data science and science experience, I can just click on import notebook. So I will click import notebook to bring in the code for the model that I worked on. Even though I'm not a data scientist, we are in the era of AI, you can always get the help of AI to do what you have to do. So I have those in my download folder. So I have the Facebook folder, ARIMA model and Facebook product model. The Facebook product model was a sample model that I got from Fabric environment. I just have to tweak it to suit my use case. So if I click on Facebook product model, then I can click on open, and then that will upload that notebook for me. So as that is going on, I can upload the second one also. So it's uploading this for me, so I can also upload this other one. It's not allowing me to do that, so I have to do this one by one. Okay, let me just close this pane, then I'll click on import again. Okay, it's still loading up. So once that is loaded for me, then I can do my data science workload within that notebook. It shouldn't take this long. So let me just load the page. I don't want to stop sharing my screen. Yeah, so let me go back into our workspace, which is workspaces. I can search office. That's the name of the workspace we have been working in. Then I click on that, then I have my workspace. And within my workspace, I can always adjust this and see if the data flow I'm bringing in is in. So it's not in yet. So let me just come back to my data science experience. Then I click on import notebook. Then I'll upload the two notebook that I have created earlier. So I'll just select the two of them at once, click on open, and let's see which one gets loaded first. So once they are up and running, then you can just open those notebook and then we run the code and then we can see the results of our model and then the forecasting of how peaceful our world is likely going to be based on the historical data that we have available. Let's give it some few more seconds. Okay, I think one is uploaded, so I think we can work with that while we wait for this second one to be uploaded. So I'll go back into my workspace. Let me cancel this. Then I'll come into my workspace. Then in my workspace, I expect to see the notebook. So this is the Iron Man notebook. So I can then expand my task flow and then expand my task flow by dragging it down here. Then under this analyze and train, I can then attach what I have created, the notebook I imported just now to this. So I click on this attachment icon right here, and then I associate my notebook, which I have named Arima model, then I click on select. So I will just open this notebook now. So I'll check this, so I didn't check, then I'll click on select. So once I do that, then I have my notebook. So I'll click on open notebook. So that will open up that notebook for me, and we can then associate the lake house to the notebook so that we can then run our model and then we can see the outcome of that prediction. So the notebook is loading up. Yeah, so this is the notebook. So first thing first, I need to attach my lake house where we have our data sets into the notebook. So if I click on this, so that will just dissociate or associate the a lake house, or I can even click on a lake house and click on this icon as the case may be. So if I click on this, either I'm using a new lake house or an existing lake house, but we know that the lake house for this is existing lake house. So I will click on add, and then it's LH, that's the name of our lake house that we created earlier. Let me just click on remove all lake houses and add the appropriate lake house. So I'll click on add now, then existing lake house, then I'll click on add. And the lake house I want to add is the one within this workspace that we have been working on. Yeah. So I have this interface where I can then pick the lake house that I'll be using for this ARIMA model. Sorry, it's taking time. Network is terrible. Yes, so lake house within our working office, our workspace. So I'll just pick that, then I'll click on add. So that will associate this lake house to my notebook. Existing add. I think it's a little bit buggy. It's not even network now. It's just bug. It's happening here. Yeah, so this is the lake house. I'll just check it. Then I click on add. Once I click on add, then that should add. Yeah, so we have the lake house now attached to this notebook. So, but for the sake of to clear benefit of that, I'll just come to my edit tab and I'll clear all this output. But that's because I've run this notebook before. So that's why I have that output. So I'm going to run it afresh and then we can now see the outcome. So this is just to read the data from the lake house. This is Spark SQL, which you can always generate by dragging and dropping this to the Canva. So that's just the first step. So this is by dragging it added this first step, but we don't need it. So let me just take it out. So I need to use the entire data set. This is linked into the first 1000 rows. So I'll just delete this and I can click on run. So once I click on run, it will run this entire notebook for me. So this is loading it into this data frame, and then we import the library using this. And also, however, let me just say this. Once you are learning for the first time, it usually take a while before it gets connected into the computer, and then it runs each of your cells for you. So this is loading now. So for subsequent running will not take this long. So this is importing the library. Then this is actually storing our data into this data frame. So I think I run into an error. So that's because df here, and then when I come here is saying df, then display data is equal to df. So let me see, Apache display df shouldn't be okay. Let me run this again because they are exactly the same name and column. So I don't know. Select country from GPI, and let me just delete this notebook and get the other one. I don't even seem to understand table of GPI. Okay, let me do this. Let me drag and drop. Then okay. So the issue is with this. So I will just edit this guy. So this is because this code I have here had specified the column, and then the schema now has changed. So I will just change this part of the code, which is just LH. So I will just change this to LH because the name of the lakehouse is different from the first notebook, and I hope that is not going to affect other parts of the loading. So let me delete this cell now, and then I will rerun it again. So hopefully this time it should run successfully. So that's the problem, because I had named the lakehouse GPI from the previous one I did, and in this new one I'm running, I named it LH as against GPI. So I just needed to change that to LH, and then we have our code running. So we have this. Now, another interesting feature you have in your notebook, as against when you are writing, you can always click on this inspect button. That will just give you like a quick summary of your data, as against you doing your df.info, df.describe, and all of that. So this will give you your brief summary. So let me just focus through what is happening. So this is loading the data into this data frame, and then you can always import the library. And then since we have declared it into a data frame and it's already a Spark data frame, we need to then convert it to a pandas data frame, which we are doing with this line 2 in this code. And then we now have the same data set. While the first one is just Spark data frame, this next one is in your pandas data frame, and then we import all your libraries, your pandas, your numpy, matplotlib, stats model, which is your ARIMA model that we are running, and then we have your prints to check and inspect your data and all of that. Convert this to the appropriate data type, check for missing values, one auth encoding, because models understand numbers and not text. So that's what that is doing. Then you convert it to your numpy arrays and all of that. So we have all of these initialized, we have the running, and we have the mean square error of 0.171. So I think that's beyond the scope of this presentation. So with this mean error, we then now start to look at the data set. How do we adjust it? Do we need to adjust your model fine tuning and all of that? And then we want to visualize this result. So when I try to visualize the result, I got this not so good visualization, which is based on this data sets. So that's what led me to exploring other models. Even though I'm not a data scientist, I had to just use other model I was able to get online. So I will go back into my workspace now, to which is office hour. So I expect that the second notebook I was importing is now available, which is the Facebook Prophet model. So that one too, I then need to attach it to this analyze and train workflow. So I can click on this attachment button and I can click on Facebook model and I click on select. So I think every item in our workspace now is now assigned to a specific task. So someone that is not here can then trace that, okay, this is doing this is doing this, and then it's become easy for troubleshooting and see how each of the assets are connected to each other. So I will open up this Facebook Prophet model notebook also. Then I will attach it to our link and then I will run that query, which I expect that's probably going to run into the same error that we had with the first notebook because of the naming convention that changed slightly. So once this notebook is done loading, so we just run it and then we can see the outcome in a more presentable manner other than what we have. So within one environment, you are able to do data engineering, Power BI, which is the visualization, and now we are doing the data science workflow. So another aspect of Microsoft Fabric that we are yet to explore for today is just data warehouse, so which we can always look at data. So I'll come back to my edit tab again, then I clear my output, and then I will run this all over again. So let me just click on this and see it bringing my lakehouse again. So this is loading up. So I clear my output cell. Yeah, so now I have my GPI data so attached to it. So right from here, so I have pip install, which is the Facebook Prophets library. Install it again, then I declare this as a variable. So now this is using the old lake house that I had created, which is GPI. But if I remove this lake house, because I had created this before, and attach the new lake house from our environment, I'll remove all lake houses because this is not the lake house that we created. This was the one that I had created earlier. So I'll click on add. So once I click on add, I'll click on existing lake house, and that lake house is this NH within our office hour workspace. Then I'll click on this, then I click on add. So once I click on add, it will add that lake house into our environment. And then when that is loaded, then so that I won't run into the same problem, I need to change this to LH. Yeah, I need to change this to LH. Then once I run this now, it will give me come back to home tab, then I'll click on run all. So while the running is being initiated, let me just walk us through the code. Import the two libraries that we need. That's the prophets, then LB prophet, which is Facebook prophet. Then this is loading it into data data frame. Then we import our pandas. Then we use this to convert it from pandas into from Spark rather into pandas data frame. Then we import our library, create a unique code, rename the prophet in there, fits the data into the model, then we plot the forecasting. But what is unique about this one is that is doing it per country. So we have about 163 countries in our data set. So it's just going to give us the output per country, and then we can see the trend of our actual GPI and then the forecast GPI. So because it's actually a lot of countries, so it's going to take a while for us to get the output. So once the output is out, then we can begin to fine tune it and then make it more readable and more visually appealing. Now, this part of the code is specifying how long you want to forecast for. So now I have 24 because the frequency is in months. If I change it to a year, then this one will be 2. But now, because I want to forecast for 2 years, that's why I'm doing 24 months, because 12 months to make a year. So now we have the outputs ready for each country, and then they are all loaded for each country. So it is still loading about 163 countries or thereabouts. So this is for because it's still loading, so it's moving, it's not staying. So let's just give it a while. So this is for Greece, this is for Portugal, for Russia. So once it's done loading, then we can then see what the projection looks like for each of these country, and then we can then fine tune it better and make it more feasible. So again, we have been able to ingest data from our data engineering experience, visualize it in our Power BI experience, and also make some sort of forecasting and prediction using our data science experience. So I think I can take questions now as this is loading for other countries.
Great. So any questions from anyone? You can raise your hand. You can type the questions in the chat. And so while I wait for any indication of questions, I will post to you the questions we ask all guests we get. Okay. So question one, there are two. Question one is your journey, how did you get into this current level of data analysis, or has your career been like, was it like from primary school you've been playing with, data and drawing graphs and all, and which would like to know.
Okay, are we going to leave here? Okay, so I'll make it as short as possible. My journey is not okay. By training, I'm a pharmacist, right? But by practitioner, I do data. So, and I think it's the pharmacy that made me discover my interest in data. So when I was doing my final year dissertation in school, as against what you expect of a typical pharmacist, where you go and test drug on humans, on animal, I didn't do that. So I had to do my projects as SPSS analysis. So then when I was doing it, I didn't even know what I was doing is a data science. So, but as a pharmacist in Nigeria or anywhere actually, once you are done with your training, you have to do 1 year compulsory internship under the supervision of a superintendent pharmacist. So when I was doing this, I was just thinking that, okay, how can I be more valuable in the job markets and all of that? Then I started looking for data skills that I can just learn. Then I saw data and I was just intrigued. And that was when I realized that what I had done for my SPSS project was applied data science. And I was able to do it with the help of my supervisor, Dr. Jigede, a very wonderful lecturer. I didn't have to pay anybody for SPSS. I had to do it myself. So he just sent me some YouTube resource. And then from there, I started learning Power BI, learning SQL, learning Excel, and everything around data. And yeah, it has been a wonderful journey and visit. So, and I think I work mostly in financial institutions, both banking and non-banking. So that's my summary of my journey.
I see you really summarized it, but you still managed to share the full gist, like the core aspect. Thanks. It's really nice to hear that. So, any other questions? The second question is let me even ask it for tying it to what you have presented to us. Everybody knows that Fabric is fairly recent. Is the amalgamation of many tools.
Yeah.
So either they gave you Expo, maybe they gave you access, Microsoft gave you access to Fabric like 3 years ago before the rest of us. Or there's a trick that you can share with us on how to go from zero to expert on most data tools. At least people can adapt it to even something that is new to them that might not have been new. Because at least for this Fabric, we know it was new to almost all of us, in the last couple of months.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I think I've always been about solving problems, not essentially the tool. So before my current role, I was working in a bank, and when I was there, my role there was Power BI developer, and I just got tired that is it just Power BI I'll be doing, and then I was handling very large data sets, and performance became a very big issue. That okay, what better tools can be used, and that was when I came across DP500, which is now retired. Now everybody's talking about the DP600. I think DP600 is more popular. So and DP500 is as Azure Synapse Analytics. So I started learning Synapse, and as we all know, that Fabric is just Power BI plus Synapse plus Data Factory. So I was already learning Synapse before Fabric came. I had written my certification exam. I think I wrote it 2 times. The first time was some few days to Christmas that year, and I failed. That's the first time I'm failing an exam. I was devastated. I was sad. And I was like, no, I'm going to write this exam before Christmas. And I promised myself that passing that exam was going to be my Christmas gift. And the only thing I had was just the documentation for the 500 learning part. And to make matter worse, I was not able to even do hands-on from what I was learning, because getting access to Azure Portal at that time was very difficult for me, especially because of Nigerian card. So all I had was just the sandbox in Microsoft Learn to practice what I learned. So I wrote the exam 2 times, and after I wrote the exam the first time, failed. Even the second time, I 100 on the because that was my Christmas gift, and I go after the exam. I knew me that okay, beyond passing the exam, reward means that I need to do. So I got courses. I bought courses on analytics to learn it, because this thing that disgraced me, even though nobody knew about it, I'm going to know it very well. So that was just a personal determination I had then. So as I was learning it, then I was already hearing from some sort of insider that okay, Microsoft is going to announce something by build. So I was looking forward to it. Immediately they announced it, I was happy. I'm like, yes, this is now time for me to avenge my previous failure with the P500. So the second day it was announced, I already put out some project like, no, 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 this is my time to shine. So I needed that to make myself happy. So I did it, and I was happy I was able to do what I was able to do at that time. So it's just basically interest and me wanting to learn. And most importantly, I think one soft skill is around knowing how to read documentation, even for existing tools, really. I think being able to read documentation is what is important. Beyond the learning part, there is product documentation, which I think I've shared with us somewhere. We can always even get it right from here. So if I click on this right now, then I click on this fabric icon, then I can just come to this interface, then I read documentation. So this documentation goes into every product, every experience, or every personal fabric in details and tutorial. So I started reading as much documentation as possible. And then of course I'm able to relate it with what I'm doing in my current job, in my experience so far. So basically it's just documentation.
Wow. Well, that means I was right. Like you got, though it wasn't like you got insider view, but you have been working on it long before. So
Not
that kind
Fabric.
of
I was
explains
working on Synapse.
on Synapse.
Now,
Now, I was just trying to say like that. That means at least there's luck, there's hope for some of us. Like it's not like
yes,
you are
yes.
miracle man, you are magic man. That there
Yeah,
was the
yeah, I
effort,
was
there was
working
the
on,
hard work.
yeah, yeah, yes. Yes, yes. I was working on Synapse when Fabric came. And in what now makes it more is the fact that Fabric is SaaS, Synapse is PaaS. You know, on Synapse Data Factory, you create your link service, your data set before you even do anything. So this one, everything is being managed for you. As against this one, you are just jumping into it, because on Synapse you have to create your storage account, you have to create your resource group and all of those things. So all those burdens are off the table with Fabric. So you just jump into it. All you need is just your workspace, especially if you are coming from Power BI background. So it's just easy for you to just transition into it.
Great, great. Any question from anyone else in the house? It's like I'm the one asking all the question, but they were reacting, they were all giving thumbs up, love emoji, clapping. So
Thank you,
I'm
thank you.
sure,
Well, I'm blowing
sure
kisses
they,
too.
I'm sure especially that your first answer, the first question, I was surprised by how many hands and all because I didn't know that people were actively when they didn't answer me with any questions. Okay. I guess maybe they are still trying to process all that you've taught us. So I've shared the GitHub stuff again so that they will know that they can also access the practice data and try to redo this themselves. So thank you very, very much. We're grateful. I know we've used more than the time we asked from you, but I also understand that it is it is like there was a lot that you need to show us, and it was just nice that you were able to give us more time and go through
Yes,
everything.
sir.
Someone is even saying they've known you. Said, I think the person's name is Folaranmi. I said, oh, that you've been a great resource, and like, the person has known you professionally for like a year and a half now. So I'm not surprised. There were many people in the call. I think we got up to 33. I guess other people needed to drop off for some things, but people always watch the recording. So they started dropping
Yeah.
off after 1 hour. I guess they had planned to do something else. So we still have like 20 or 18 left. So thank you very, very much. We are grateful
Yeah,
for
thank
the
you for
presentation,
having
the
me.
knowledge. Yes, and welcome to the MVP community. It's
Thank you,
uh,
sir.
let me tell you the why I'm welcoming you. It means that we can call you anytime. You are bound to come and present. I'm just joking.
I understand. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right. But thanks a lot, sir. All right. And have
Yeah,
a
thank
good
you for
week.
having me. Yeah,
Thank you,
you too.
everyone. Bye,
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you. Bye.